Alright, welcome back, strangers, to another yap sesh. I thought it might be fun to talk about where I think Black Desert Online went wrong. Because, obviously, if anyone's watching this video, they probably know me from Black Desert Online days. So I thought it would be fun to maybe not even fun, maybe sad. Maybe sad is a better word for it. I thought it would be sad to talk about where BDO went wrong. So, I've quit BDO. Every once in a while, I'm like, man, I kind of want to go play. And then I'll go play for like a month, and then I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I don't play anymore. It's basically the phase that I'm at. I haven't like blown up my account. I haven't even uninstalled. I mean, I don't keep it updated, but I keep the door open in case there's ever anything interesting going on, which there rarely is these days. But let's talk about what happened to Black Desert Online. I think Black Desert Online's greatest sin, maybe that's too harsh of language, but their biggest fuck up was abandoning and really more so, I think, vilifying their most hardcore community in the pursuit of casual gamers. I think this is a thing that you see a lot in games these days. It's less about the people that are, playing it every day. They're really like putting their all into it. They're super into, whatever mechanics are going on. In terms of Black Desert Online, it would have been the PvP, right? And more so towards the people who log in for 1 or 2 hours, if that, and it's all about bringing in the most amount of people as possible. And I think the reason for that, because I actually refuse to believe that makes them more money. I really don't think it does. I don't think you make money by bringing in a bunch of people who, yeah, maybe they're gonna spend $100 one time, but outside of that, like, I don't think that those are your repeat customers, right? I don't think that they're going to keep purchasing over and over and over again. I think the reason why a lot of companies do this, including Pearl Abyss, this like desire to gain new players at the cost of your old players, is because it's a really easy metric of growth. Even though it's not actually growth, it's just turnover. But I think your average investor is too stupid to realize that. They're like actually too dumb whenever they're looking at like video game numbers and stuff. They don't comprehend what's being explained to them. So Pearl Abyss gets to say, oh, well, we made some changes to, try and bring new players in, and we brought in, 10,000 new accounts were made. 50% of that were, spenders. They spent money in microtransactions. So that's 5,000 new customers, and it's like, oh, whoa, that's so cool. But like, of those 5,000 people, I don't think many of those are going to be repeat customers. I think they're oftentimes going to be one-time buyers. Maybe once or twice, and then they'll probably either get burnout and quit, or they'll just decide, I kind of have everything that I need. I don't really want to spend more on this. The people that are spending the money, your repeat customers, are the hardcore players that I think with every casual, friendly change being made, you just lost more and more and more of the hardcore player base that are, I think, primarily your repeat customers. And for the record, when I'm talking about your hardcore player base, I'm not saying that you had to be good at PvP. to be a hardcore player. I'm just saying that you participated in PvP on like a regular basis as a form of competitive or competition, I guess, right? Like, that's what it means to be hardcore. Because when you just go out and you grind for an hour and then you're like, oh cool, I made some money, yay, you know, maybe I can buy this earring that I wanted, that's pretty casual because there's no competition. You don't have, like, you know, it's not a fight, unless you're one of those psychopaths who's like literally you're competing to see who can get the most like trash in an hour. There's no competitive aspect to it. It's supposed to be, and I think it is designed this way. It is supposed to be chill. It's supposed to be relaxing. It's supposed to be monotonous, you know, fucking lull you to sleep. I think it is actually designed that way. And I think that the flip side of that coin is the PvP, which is supposed to be erratic, crazy, unpredictable, difficult. And I think that they started, for some reason, deciding that bringing in new players, that the vast majority of which would be casuals, rather than trying to foster a hardcore environment, they just decided that was way more worth. And again, that don't make sense to me. I think that you do that for shareholder reasons and not actual like money reasons. But you know, what are you gonna do? You know, that's the decision that they made. But I think, you know, it can all be traced back, I think, to pay to win, right? You know, Black Desert Online, you know, let's get this out of the way first, right? Pay to win is a spectrum. You know, it's not a yes or no. If you try and force it into a yes or no, it becomes a difficult question to properly gauge, and you can kind of propagandize it a little bit. Because if it's a yes-no question, then 0% is no, and then 0.01% is yes, right? So the tiniest bit of pay for convenience, you know, you can make an argument that built up over the course of so many hours and blah, 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 blah. You know, there's an argument to be made that, you know, even the slightest pay for convenience item is pay to win. I think it's way easier to say that, yes, it is pay to win, but pay to win is a scale that goes from, you know, you can purchase a pet, you know, you can purchase paid for convenience items that, you know, do add up in the long term, to full on, I'm selling items that I purchased with real world money for in-game money. I am directly translating my real life money for in-game money, right? And it can all be traced back to the crons, right? And that was like the first big like domino to fall, I think, right? There are some people who will say like the value pack was the first big domino to fall. I think everyone has to draw their own line, right? I really don't think the value pack was as big of a jump as adding crons, you know, cronning costumes. And then obviously the biggest jump was just outright being able to sell cash shop items on the marketplace. You know, essentially just being able to, you know, pay real life money for in-game money, just with that extra step in between, just so we can claim that like it's not pay to win or whatever, right? You're just buying gold, essentially. And, you know, obviously you'll hear people argue that, you know, well, it's good because what about the free players? They want costumes too. Oh, listen, we're not bothering with any of that shit. We're just talking about, is it pay to win or not? To me, where my line falls, I think value pack maybe cross the line. There's certainly an argument that can be made. Cron stones being extractable from costumes, very cross the line, and selling costumes on the marketplace, very across the line. And I think with every single change that they did to shake the foundation of competitive integrity, I guess I would say. More and more of the hardcore player base was like, I don't really want to spend my time or my money on this game anymore. I'm out, right? And what's fascinating is that it's a problem that they caused. I mean, it's literally the meme of the guy who sticks the pipe in his bicycle spokes, right? And then like falls on the ground. Or the what was it? Was it an Eric Andre skit where he shoots that comedian in the chair and then he turns around and goes, "Who could have possibly done this?" I mean, it's literally that, because they make all these changes that piss off all of these hardcore players that were big spenders. The people that I spent time with in Black Desert Online spent a lot of fucking money on that game. Thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars. So many guilds filled with these people that would regularly spend hundreds of, like, their hard-earned dollars weekly on the game, right? Thousands over the course of their lifetime, if not tens. You know what I'm saying? And these people were like, why would I put time into a game that's not fair? And again, everyone has that line. Everyone draws that line somewhere, and it got crossed and they left. So they lose all this money, and then they're like, oh shit, we have to try and bring in new players, right? We have to try and bring in new players and convert them into spenders. Because it's not just about bringing new players in, you have to try and convert them into spenders, right? So, okay, well, let's bring in new players by, going even harder in this direction. We're going to make it to where we've already destroyed the competitive integrity of the game, essentially, harshly damaging PvP interactions. What if we just, removed PvP interactions altogether? What if we just removed open world PvP almost entirely by making it, punishments for flagging on people super severe, because we have to protect all these casual players that we're desperately trying to turn into spenders, even though in the process of doing that, we're just removing even more of our hardcore player base that spends the most money on the game from the game. We'll make it to where declarations of war have to be two-sided, so there's no longer any sense of community engagement in terms of shit throwing, I guess I would call it. There were so many fights over the course of Black Desert Online that were very one-sided, and that made it fun, that made it interesting. Yes, it sucked sometimes to be the little guy. Trust me, I was the little guy a lot of times over the course of my BDO career. More often than not, I was the little guy. I was never in a fucking Black Rose or a Cho Nation or a fucking, even a Barcode like way back in the day, a Man Up. I was never in any of these fucking guilds. The strongest guild I was ever in was I would probably say Fire Nation, back on fucking Uno server, way back in 2017. That's probably the strongest guild that I was ever in all honesty. So I was never the big guy. I was always the little guy, and I oftentimes got shit on by the big guys. But guess what? Those interactions create memories, and I think they've kind of realized, we made a mistake, because I've heard the CEO say stuff like this in the past, where he's like, those interactions, they weren't always fair, but man, were they fun? Did they create memories? And it's like, yeah, they did. But the thing is they say this, but they for some reason are dying on this hill. And in all honesty, it maybe is smart to die on this hill and not roll back these changes, because it might just be too late. I think for a lot of people, you've gone too far, and even if you were to roll back a lot of these changes, I don't think people would give a shit. I don't think they would come back. I think that at this point in time, they're like, nah, that's behind me. If they heard that, it changed, if they heard that it changed and they rolled it back, you probably would see some people come back, but I think the vast majority wouldn't. I mean, you're talking about, of all the hardcore players who have left the game over the years, if they decided to revert a bunch of these changes, right? I mean, maybe like 10% of them come back. Maybe. So, getting back your hardcore players isn't ideal. So at this point, you may as well just keep trying to stick with your casuals. You know what I mean? Keep trying to turn them into spenders. Hope that they get, entranced by the gear system, and, they've added like the dungeons and stuff, all this like more casual content, right? And hope that they, really fall for it hard, and that converts them into spenders. That's probably the best shot you have at this point, because you've absolutely destroyed your fucking competitive community. So, yeah, it really just, I think so many errors were made, and it goes, I think you could trace the first misstep going all the way back. I don't even know if I could find this clip anymore if I tried, but I know that it existed. Other people have seen it too, of the Dom employee at some convention. I think it was PAX East, if I remember correctly, in 2016. A Dom employee. If you're relatively new to Black Desert Online, you're like, who is Dom? What is Dom? Dom Games was, I believe, they were the publisher. I'm trying to remember if they merged with Kakao or if they just renamed as Kakao. I honestly can't remember. I'm really struggling to remember if they were bought out by Kakao, or if they merged with Kakao, or what happened. But they became Kakao, if I remember correctly. But that Dom employee back in 2016, before the game even released, was caught on camera in 480p, because 4K probably didn't exist at the time, saying the Western version of the game will have zero pay to win. Zero pay to win. There will be no pay to win, because that was a big concern. People said, man, the Korean version of this game is super fucking pay to win. And we don't really like that in the West at this time. I think people are fine with pay to win now. The boiled frog of pay to win over the last 10 years has been actually kind of insane to witness, in all honesty. Where it went from, if this game has pay to win, I'm absolutely not playing it, and neither should anyone else, in all honesty, to, oh yeah, it's pay for gear, but, who cares, as long as it's fun. It's like, yeah, but it's not going to be fun for long. No one's going to put that much time and effort into something that you could just swipe your credit card and be the best at. It just doesn't make sense. But anyway, that's a topic for another day, I guess. But I think that little clip, that clip that I remember seeing, that fucking 10-second clip of him answering that question, and then whenever they added the value pack, and that clip circulated around, and people were like, what the fuck is this? That was people were very upset. Very, very upset. They were not happy. So, I mean, the first mistakes go all the way back before the game even fucking launched in the West, to be honest with you. So, but I think the biggest ones would just be all the changes that they made in order to, I would say not in order to. I think their goal was always to bring in new players and protect new players from the veterans, right? And I kind of do understand that to a point, I would say. Because at the end of the day, you can't helicopter parent these new players forever. The Olvia system existed for quite a while, and I think the Olvia system was good in that it was a place for new players and returning players. I think maybe you could have set something aside for returning players specifically, so that these veterans who just haven't played in a month don't come onto Olvia and just shit stomp all these new players. I do understand to a point trying to protect these new players, but making fundamental changes to how the game functions, i.e., oh my goodness, bunny rabbits. i.e., war declaration changes and karma penalty changes and just all this stuff. I think it was way too far. They really villainized veteran PvPers, and I think that's why the competitive scene of Black Desert Online has been in the shitter forever now. I mean, since COVID, basically, it had an artificial bump in COVID because everyone was sitting at home with nothing else to do. So it had a boom. But then after that, it's just been all downhill. So I think that's what went wrong. I mean, in a not so short, not so sweet fashion, I suppose. But I have arrived. My girlfriend is standing right there. So yeah, thanks for listening to me yap, I guess. And catch you guys later.